Hello and welcome. Hope everybody's having a good Saturday so far. For those of us in the US, it's early afternoon. Anybody in Europe should be evening at this point. So hopefully whatever part of your day you're through, it has been a good one. So welcome to Dev Chatter. My name is Brendan, and for those of you that are returning, thanks for coming back. Anybody that's new coming in from a host from either CodeBytes TV or C# Fritz, appreciate your attendance. So glad to have you guys here. Anyway, so a bit of an intro. We have been working on some C# code, a couple of projects we've been doing. The first one that we started a couple of weeks ago, but we did take a little bit more than a week off because I came down with a bit of a cold and couldn't really speak. But we were working on a C# chatbot that connected to Twitch, and we set that up using the TwitchLib project that exists on GitHub. The TwitchLib handled some of the basic plumbing code for the connection. Now, on the stream, our plan is that we will likely need to make modifications to that at some point as we add new things that we want to do. We do know that there are changes to how Twitch does some of the chat features, and so they recently added chat rooms. So instead of just having the individual stream chat along the side that you're all used to, they added the ability to have various rooms with different restrictions on them. My assumption on this is that they're trying to get a handle on the fact that almost every single Twitch stream that I am a part of, and almost probably any other one, has a Discord organization, a Discord group that that they run, and that's where a lot of Twitch channels do their discussion when the stream is not live. My assumption is that Twitch is trying to pull everybody back and keep them more engaged on Twitch, rather than having a separate community for those people to go to. So we'll see where it goes. But either way, what that means for us is that while our bot does work today in its ability to do some basic chatting, we are going to run into some problems when we start dealing with rooms. TwitchLib at this point doesn't seem to understand the concept of rooms, so we'll have to figure that one out. So today, let's go ahead and take a look at the code that we were working on before. We hacked a couple of things in here to begin with, just to see what we could get working, and just sort of experiment with the library that we're using. As I mentioned, it's TwitchLib, it's out on GitHub, and if you want to contribute to it or take a look at it, go for it. We will certainly find value from that here. Also keep in mind that all the code that we are working on here, I am pushing out from time to time to GitHub, so feel free to fork that, make any changes you want, send us a pull request, or just feedback on it, put in any issues that you notice or anything like that. So if you want to contribute, you are more than welcome to. Okay, so what we were working on Thursday on the stream, I mentioned that we just sort of hacked something in there. So previously, what our bot was doing is, I'm going to go ahead and run it so we can see it going. It connects to Twitch, and it will send out a message in the Twitch chat. Right now, that message is just on a delay. So what we end up with when we run it is just every 15 minutes or something like that, it's going to say hello, welcome, and a little thing about following. So our goal is that we're going to allow our users of our bot to create more of these types of messages. So and then store them, and then load them up as the bot runs and connects, and turn them on and off, things like that. All the various bot stuff that we want to do. So the first type of message that we created is this interval triggered message. So essentially it's just check to see how long it's been since you last sent your message and send it out given the frequency that you specify. Right now we have that frequency specified in minutes, but obviously we could change this into a time span of some sort and change it so it's seconds, milliseconds, whatever you want to do. Although if you're sending out messages in an interval of seconds, you're probably not going to have happy users. But anyway, this is the basic piece that we wanted to set up to begin with, because just a little reminder of, hey, don't forget to follow is kind of a standard among a lot of Twitch streams. So that seemed like a good place to start. So the next piece that we wanted to add in was being able to respond to the users in chat. So if someone wanted to send a command to the bot, we wanted the bot to be able to respond and do something. So that's the piece that we were hacking in. And I say hacking in not because the code we wrote is all that bad, but because we were putting in a temporary piece. So what we put in, we added it directly to the TwitchChat client. Now that's not our end goal. We don't want it to live directly on the TwitchChat client. And the reason for that is that we want to instead have the ability for any of the bots to respond to these commands. So right now, it's set up so that the hang on, let my brain work. It's only set up so that it works with Twitch, because we hard-coded it in here. So what we need to do, you'll remember, we wrapped our, well, sort of wrapped. We created an interface that we then created our own wrapper to wrap around Twitch client. So TwitchLib has its own Twitch client, obviously, because you need to have a client that's going to do this connection to Twitch. So what we did was we went ahead and just wrapped it. And we could have just called it like Twitch Client Wrapper or something like that, but I just changed the name slightly and did a TwitchChat client instead of Twitch client. Worked well enough. What that means is that we're going to have Discord chat client and things like that will be our other chat clients. So that means we need to modify this interface if we want to be able to respond to commands. Because in our actual bot, we only want to really know about this interface. So that's how we're going to keep that separation. So what we end up with, I like the idea of doing an eventing structure for now, because it's pretty simple. Hey, welcome, MPET45, thanks for following. So what we want to do in our interface is add on an event. So the reason we want to do it so simply is because that makes it a little bit easier for us to deal with. So in the end, we might end up doing some kind of a domain event model that is separate from the actual chat client object, and we might do, like, you know, triggering events, publishing a pub sub model that's more advanced than this. But for now, let's start off simple. We don't want to just jump to mass complexity. But we want to keep in the back of our mind, hey, that's the thing that we want to eventually probably get to. So that's sort of how I avoid doing the whole premature optimization. I don't want to just jump in and just add in tons of stuff. So that's how we're going to get around that. So let's go ahead and add in our starting event. So right now, I can look at what types of data the TwitchChat client makes available to us, and what I'm going to do when I look at this is not match it exactly. I'm going to use it more as a reference to help me think of what I want to do, because I'm not looking right now at the Discord chat clients either, and I'm assuming that there is a library very similar to TwitchLib that'll connect me to the Discord bot, as will connect me to Discord's chat as well, without having to write all those pieces ourselves, because we are just making the bot. We don't need to deal with the connections. Someone else can do that. And obviously we can make our own updates to it if we need to later also. Okay, so the bot itself, the TwitchChat client recognizes that something was a command to a bot. And so the way it identifies that, I mentioned this on Thursday, is that by default, a command to a Twitch bot is prefaced with an exclamation point. So, for example, if I type in to the chat, you'll see I typed in exclamation point points, and what that'll do is that tells a bot, hey, I am giving you a command, and the command is points. And so all different Twitch clients identify that and can respond to it. All the different Twitch bots recognize exclamation points. That's just sort of a standard. So you'll notice DevChatterBot responded to that message if you're in chat in Twitch right now. And what it did is it actually responded back with the number of points that I have in my own chat. So I have 160 points right now. Now, points are like this fairly meaningless thing that Twitch communities tend to use. They're kind of fun. You can use them for gambling and other games and things like that that are done inside of a Twitch chat. It makes it kind of fun. Some channels actually have like in community stores that you can pay for various things. So they'll do it for games and stuff like that. So I know one Twitch streamer that will choose the character they're going to play as in each round of the game they play based on players spending points for different things. And some channels do song requests for points. So you spend 20 points and you can request a song. And as you sit around in chat, you gain points. So that's basically how this works. So I am running the Streamlabs chat client, which used to be OnkBot. So if you're looking up anything for OnkBot or Streamlabs, those are some bots that exist. So I'm running one, but I'm also writing my own. So that one is actually the one that responded back and said the number of points that I have, because we haven't built that feature into our chat bot yet. However, if I, instead of asking for points, ask for coins, you will get a response not from the Streamlabs bot, but from our bot instead. So this little guy running right here on my computer in this little console application is actually what responded back and said, coins, I think you meant points. And the way it did that is that it came in and fired off this event for me, and it told me in its Receivedargs that the command it had received was coins. And then I just said, hey, send this message out. So as I said, hacked internally, this is inside of the Twitch chat client, not where we want it to be, because we actually want it to be able to respond to any chat client, and specifically the one you called in on too, which is going to be the next piece. So most of the time in eventing inside C#, you're going to get two pieces of information when someone triggers an event. The first thing is you get the sender of the event, so that's who triggered the event. In this case, that's going to be very important for us because we're not going to want an object sender. We're going to want a chat client to be the sender. The next thing that we need is the arguments. So we need what the data was in that caused this to trigger. So that's going to be in some kind of an Receivedargs. So let's go over to our chat client and we're going to set this up. So what we want to do is we want to create, so if we take a look, we're doing this one. We're not going to do it exactly, but we're going to be pretty similar. So we want an on-chat command received. We're going to start with that name and see if we want to change it. So this should be an event handler. And then we are going to give this a type, which I'm not 100% that I want to keep that name, on chat command received. Okay, so here's the distinction. So this said on chat command received, which means that it's not a whisper. It received the command from chat. So I'm actually okay with that being there. Hey, thanks for the lurk, Rexy. So we're going to go ahead and call it that for now. So we're going to force, so our chat client is going to have one of these. So each chat client is going to trigger one of those. No, we want our chat client to trigger these. So we don't want it to have one of these. we want it to trigger one of these. So let's go to where we call this. Not send message on it. Where do we connect? TwitchChat client. We want to go here. Okay, so I want to figure out at which level I want to have this, and shout out if you've got an idea of where we should put this for now. Okay, connect chat clients, when all done. Okay, publish messages, okay, begin the loop. That's where we're running that. So this is all going to have to become async and on a separate thread at some point. That's how we're doing our interval messages right now. And as I said, a lot of things we're just putting them in there as we build, and we know that we're going to improve them as we go. So I never like jumping to the final architecture, because otherwise you write a whole bunch of stuff that's complicated and isn't what we're actually going to use anyway. Okay, so our chat clients, when we connect them, right after we connect them is probably when we want to connect their events. Okay, so I'm going to say wire up event handlers as the next step in essentially running the bot. So okay, what does this one do? Publish messages. Oh, I really should rename that. Automated messages publishing system. Yeah, I'm gonna change that at some point because I don't like what that's called. So I'm just gonna make a note for myself, and we'll come back and get that at some point. I might do it off stream, but really I just want to get it a new name because it doesn't really tell me what it's doing, and I'll explain why. If you look at it, what it's sort of publishing is this is sort of like, it's almost like subscribing it. It's setting it up so that the chat client has these messages available is sort of what it seems like it's doing in this publish method. It's like saying, hey, configure the automated messaging system. It's something like that, and it's going to take a minute to figure out the name, and I don't think that'll be the most interesting use of our time. So, okay, so let's wire up our event handlers. So we have a set of chat clients, and I want to say for each chat client, we want to get its we want to get whatever kind of chat it has and tell it, hey, when you get these, come back and tell me that you've triggered. So I'm gonna go ahead and set that up right now. Hey, welcome Hatless Studio. Hope your Saturday's going well. Okay, so now what I want to do here is I'm going to put in some kind of method for handling these, and I want them to always give me their sender. Now that might mean that I tell each one to wire itself up and then set up some spot for it to call. I'm not sure yet. So let's see what the chat client gives me. So this, because we wrapped it, it doesn't actually have the event I'm looking for yet. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Twitch client itself. Hey, the bot just sent out its message. That's 15 minutes ago we started it. Okay, so I told you before that I wanted to add in that event handler here. And I might do that. Except it also might make sense to just make a void method for now that says to wire up this event handler. So I'm going to say wire up event handler, and no, this is not the permanent name because I'm going to actually need to tell it which event we're wiring up. I just want to put that in there. Okay, so for now, Do we want, I think we want, do we want an expression? Do we want a function? Do we need a result on this? I'm not sure we do. Okay, so we're going to do an action, and we're going to pass in. This is an action that takes in an iChat client, and its second parameter is, so the iChat client in this case is our sender, right? So in an event, you always receive a sender and the event arguments. And then the next parameter we want to get is the command data. So, how about a command received event args? Okay, so command received event args. I am going to create a new type with this name. We're not going to have anything interesting on it for now. And I'm going to call this, this is wireup event handler, so I'll call it event handler for now. And I don't know what types I want to put on these event args just yet, but we're going to figure that out. And I really don't like where I'm going to have this live for now. We're going to need to do a little bit of restructuring in that library, but it's not bad yet. Okay, so now that we have that piece there, let's go ahead and fix whatever this error is that we left in place somewhere, which is this. This needs to implement that. Okay. So now we want to wire up our event handler, and this is where, so the reason we set this up this way is we could have been creating this event handler based on the constructor, but we want to tell our TwitchChat client what method we want to use for this handling. And the nice part is that if we do it this way, we should be able to pass in the same event handler for all of our chat clients, whether it's Twitch or Mixer, YouTube, whatever. Okay, so this is a void method, so I don't actually have to do anything in here. However, I do want to say this dot, actually I want to say underscore TwitchChat client and say on, chat command received. I actually don't want to do it that way. I think I want to do it in line right here with a lambda. Okay, so the reason I'm doing it here in this lambda is because then I can just get access to the event handler that was passed to me. So I am just going to call my event handler and just say, instead of I'm going to pass in this as my sender. I'm not sure what the sender was in the other one, to be honest. But since I'm not really wiring up an event handler per se, I'm sort of just relying on theirs. I can just sort of pass this in. Okay. So now I want to create a little static helper method for myself that creates a command received event args. Actually, I almost want to make it be an extension in here. Since that's in core, we can access it here. So event args, and yes, I do understand that I could make a an auto mapper for this, but I really don't care to make an auto mapper for it because it's so simple right now. Event args extensions is all we're going to call it for now. This is just going to be a static class, so I'm going to make a quick extension method here. So if you're not familiar with extension methods in C#, it's essentially you get to treat a static method as if it were an instance method on an object, and you don't have to put that in the class. So this would be this one. To that. Okay, there we go. Had to think of what that name was. Okay, so here's the deal. I need to know what that is. On chat command Receivedargs. On chat command command received. On chat command Receivedargs. There we go. So we're going to call that one source. Oh, it's just complaining that they don't know return value. That's fine. Okay, so at this point, we're basically done with that piece. All I need to do now is say args.that. Now you might be saying, but wait a minute, you didn't actually do the translation. Yes, I know. I was just wiring everything up to make sure it works. I want to get a test around this too, and just make sure that we can really create these two pieces and that they do what we think they do. Okay. Our console one is going to break when we try to run this code now, but I'm not too worried about it. This language we're using is C#, Drunk Teletubbies, which I love your name, by the way. That is pretty good. Yep, thank you, Magnus. Yep, we are doing C#, and the bot is currently running, which is why it's giving me all these errors. So I'm going to go ahead and kill the bot, because we don't need it running. It's already printed out the message reminding everybody to click that follow button, and you'll get notifications. Why not implement a direct conversion? Okay, so the reason I'm doing it where I am is I could put it in two places. So I could write a method that just does that translation, or so you might say, why don't you put it on your command receives? And the reason is that this is inside of my core project, and this doesn't know anything about any of TwitchLib's classes. So I obviously can't put it here, because this one can't know about the other one. The other piece is over, let's back up, over on this one. That is the on command chat received args. This one lives over in TwitchLib. So since it's not in either of those places, I want it to live somewhere else. So essentially I want it to be a helper method. But what I like a little nicer is that by doing an extension method, I can just call it right off of args. And I mean, I could have just done this and just made it so that, you know, it's a regular method and it passes those in, and through method overloading, whichever arguments we received, it would do it, except I like having all of our little converters together. So the EventArg extension is going to have most likely a handful of methods that are, you know, with this same name and this, but they take in a different parameter for how they do it. So we're still going to use method overloading for it, and it should work out pretty nicely. So for now it's in here, but it won't live in Twitch forever. Well, this one will live in Twitch actually, but if we add if we add other ones that are like, not just to command received, but there could be like a to user joined, for example. Okay, so the result of the conversion is in your core project, and the source is in, exactly, yes. So the source one comes from Twitch, the TwitchLib project, which is a dependency we are taking up here, you'll see. And then the other one is inside of core, so that lets this one be the consistent one that we use everywhere. So everybody will know about this one. It currently doesn't have anything in it, so hence there's no real reason to do any mapping. Okay, so obviously if I want to unit test this, my unit test class is going to need to make a reference to the Twitch project. Currently, the only one we are connected to is the core project. So I'm going to go ahead and add that right now. And we're going to now have to be very, very careful. So I don't like making these lightly, but I do want to keep these still as unit tests. So I just need to be cautious that I don't do an integration test by mistake when I make those. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a folder for the Twitch project. So these are going to be all tests dealing with Twitch. I'm going to go ahead and make a folder inside of here now specifically for connecting to our various extension bits. Hey, thanks Magnus. Appreciate the follow. Okay, so what we're going to do, instead of new folder, we're going to call this thing maybe extension tests for now. And inside of extension tests, I'm going to make a class, and I am going to call it that's a good question. To command received event args should. And yeah, testing this is not the most important test to have, but it's nice to just get this in here once, and hopefully we can just make it so simple that it doesn't really matter. Okay, so the reason I put tests in the name there, anybody that's familiar with C# and has done much development with it in the past will have eventually run into the problem that C# doesn't do well with having classes and namespaces and things like that that are matching in weird ways. So if you match the name of a type and a namespace, it can sometimes get confused. So what that means is, since this is a class, I don't want to have a namespace with this exact name, or it can get messy sometimes. So that's why I added the word tests on the end of that. Okay, and that actually only deals with the last section of the namespace. You're less likely to run into the problem if it's like one of the subsections of your namespace. Hence why I didn't have to make that Twitch tests. Okay, so here's what I want to do. First off, fix that because I changed the name. And then the next thing, anybody that is familiar with XUnit knows that I am going to make a fact. If you're not familiar with XUnit and you're maybe an NUnit user in C#, then you're probably used to this being called a test. And then additionally, you're putting a class attribute for test fixture. XUnit and NUnit work pretty much the same way, except they have a couple of different conventions. Pretty much since .NET Core came around, even the internal Microsoft teams that developed .NET Core have been using XUnit. It was still common with the full .NET framework development, but NUnit was the more common one. So they both still work in all places, so use whichever one you like. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on what this is. And yes, I am just going to call this test 1 for now, because I don't really know what I'm going to write. So I like to start off by just creating the objects that I'm doing, and then seeing what happens with them. So since this is an extension method, I could just call this as if it's a static, and just use the full extension class. So the way that these extension methods work, I could just do this dot whatever and, you know, call my method, pass in my arguments, get the result, right? So I could do this, and that is perfectly valid, but I don't really want to. So instead, what I'm going to do, I am going to call this source. So these are my source args. And then instead of calling it like that, I am going to say source dot to that, right? And then that gets me my result args. So I'm going to call it source args and result args, actually. I like the source and result because I know exactly what those are, and anybody looking at a test can be like, ah, that's the incoming data, that's the outgoing data, so we look for, we assert based on the values of the result, and anybody can look at this and tell what it is. If the name of whatever the object is going to be long, so in this case I could get away with args, then I'll leave off the source and result because it's more important to have the context of what the objects are. The idea being, I want to make sure that at all points that I am being nice to future developer, which might be me, might be someone else. Either way, I want to make sure it's easy to read. So what I'm taking a look for here, I just wanted to see if I'd pulled in fluent assertions, which I haven't, so I'm not going to use them. I'm a big fan of fluent assertions, but you don't need them. So I am just going to do an assert equal. Now there are a couple of important parameters on here that I want to set up. So the first thing is I need to know what the command was that they typed. The second thing is I should know who it was. I am amazed that it doesn't get me access to that. Is it only on construction? Ooh, man, they might be real jerks. I haven't taken a look at TwitchLib, but I need to see how they created this thing. Yeah. Alright, let's take a look. So one of the nice things about depending on an open source library is I can just go and look at what code they did. TwitchLib. TwitchLib. Alright. So, hey, white background. Sorry for your eyes there, everybody. Jumping you from dark background to light background, not always that nice. Yeah, I could just use reflection, but it's more fun to go out here because if I notice something that needs to change, then I can bookmark it and come back and actually submit the pull request, or I could submit an issue. But yeah, you're right. I could just reflect on it. I could decompile it, whatever I want to do. Okay. So let's see. We are looking for these event args, which should be somewhere in this repository. Wow. Maybe they're not. User types in figure. How did that not come up in code? Maybe it's not in this. Maybe it's not in that lib. Maybe it is in client or pub sub. So we're going to search the whole organization for it because I apparently looked in the wrong place. Oh yeah, see, there it is. It's on client. Okay. Property representing that. There it is on chat command received. Twitch client Unity. Yeah, command equals that. Okay. Okay. Has a new chat command of that. Okay. So they literally just shoved everything into this. That's hilarious. Good job, guys. I guess that works. Yep. Yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned it, but Twitch's chat actually uses IRC. So if you have an IRC client that you like, you can actually connect that to a Twitch channel and just use it. So our chat command will be lurk, and then new chat message, right? That was the IRC string. Not sure what's in the IRC string, but either way, this one has a nice constructor that has the bot's username. Interesting. So I am not planning on having our event args separate out the command into an individual object like this. I'm going to put them as parameters specifically on it, so it's not nested. Because I feel like the command event args, at least for the stuff we're doing, should have basically just a couple of values. I don't want to get as specific, so you'll notice it has various things. I'm not sure how well you can read that because that's kind of small text there. So I'll tell you what's in this. So this is the bot. This is the bot name. This is the IRC string. And so this is the one I wanted to talk about. This parameter that's in here, because it's an interesting one. This has emote collection. So it's ref message emote collection, and then there's a boolean for replace emote set. So if additionally, I want to talk about what's in the other constructor as well. They have badges, channel, color hex, display name, emote set, moderator, subscriber. They have all of these parameters that are in here. And that's actually because there's all kinds of little things inside of a Twitch chat. So you might notice next to everybody's name when they type something in here, you might have someone that has an icon to indicate that they're a Twitch Prime user. You might have a Twitch Turbo user icon that's on there. We don't currently have... so my channel's not actually a Twitch affiliate right now. So we don't have badges for subscribers, or we don't have bits badges for cheering or anything like that. If we do eventually decide that we want to have subscribers and cheering and things like that, we might add it. But we have not actually signed up to be a Twitch affiliate yet. So that's why you don't have those. But those will be little badges that'll be on those names. So what we could do is we could actually look for some of these badges and do things based on that. Occasionally Twitch will also run special things. So for a while there were custom badges you could get that would just display when you're on channels to tell people like, hey, I've taken the such and such pledge. So I was running one for a little while that was basically just about not being a jerk in the gaming community. And I can be in support of that. I think most people can be. Being not nice is not a great thing. And I don't need that last argument. It does not want me to pass in null. So what do you want? You want a reference to one of these? Alright, let me actually pull a variable out. There we go. It now has a reference to that collection. Which I assume means that we can modify. Maybe it does a reference to it just because it makes me wonder if it's pulling like the full images into these, and so then it doesn't want to be loading these each time. That might be what it is. Maybe there's some additional metadata, and that's why they're passing it by reference, because copying this collection would be a beast. I'm actually curious now. I hope you are too. So this is a message emote collection. Has a sorted list of message emotes, base pattern. It's got a regex on it. I love how the regex's name is just regex, because clearly we don't want to know what the regex does. These guys are as bad as I am. I'll come back and fix this later, which we all of us devs say. That's hence why I left myself that to do earlier, is because I want to make sure I actually come back and get it. Maybe it's just regex because it's generic. Don't know. We'll see. Message emotes collection, emote list, sorted list of message emotes. I may need to grab that one. What is message emote then? Oh, it was right here. Place emote delegate, read-only collection of strange emotes URL, read-only collection of those. Third-party emote URLs. Yeah, okay. Well, looks like it's referencing other locations for different emotes and emote sets. So I guess I can understand you wouldn't want to duplicate that. So yes, it falls into what we were thinking. That is an object that you probably only want to have one instance of, so it makes sense that they just reference it, because it seems like you might modify it. I didn't dig in too far, but my guess is that if it hits an emote that's from another set, that it might need to go get that. So, I think the idea there would be that, let's say that I'm a subscriber of C# Fritz's Twitch channel, which actually I am a subscriber of his Twitch channel, then that means that I have access to one of his emotes. So that means that I can type in, whoops, C#, what? Why didn't C# bot work? Oh, because he's not. That's funny. You're right, I'm not a subscriber. I lied to you. So notice it did not load the bot. Hang on. But that one does. See, I am a subscriber. Okay, so... yeah, see, I told you, my name is Brendan. This is Dev Chatter. Welcome, everybody. So, me as Brendan, I am a subscriber to the C# Fritz channel. So, I have access to all the emotes from there. So, my guess is that if the bot needs to, it might have to go and get one of those. So, clearly, you don't want to have loaded every possible emote. Nothing would. Want to have loaded every possible emote that could be used on a given Twitch stream, because there are individual emotes for any stream that exists. If you loaded them all, you'd be sitting there for hours loading all these things. So instead, it must be making calls to grab those when it needs them. And so it would make sense that we would maintain one individual collection, and we would want a reference to it so that we modified it. Now what's weird about this is a C# class, so it's passed by reference anyway. So anything we modify inside of it's going to be reflected on that same object. Either way, not worried about it. It was kind of interesting to look at what was in there, simply because we didn't write that code. So, what I want to make sure is a couple of things. So, we have certain information that we want to pull out of here that we care about. The first one is obviously the command message, like what the actual trigger is. I like the idea of calling it a command word, because you pass parameters after a space, things like that, so I might call it a command word. So the first one is the expected, the second is the actual, so I have that backwards. So I want this to be lurk. So we're going to set up this test with the idea of a lurk command. So for anybody that doesn't know, we had a guy named Rexy that popped in, put in some little lurk emotes and said he was lurking. What that means is that he may or may not be listening, but he's sitting around in chat and he just wants to say, hey, I'm here, I might listen, I might not be, but he's just leaving a lurk, which means he's going to sit around in chat and tell us he's here, and he'll just be a viewer in the stream, but he won't really be talking. So it's a nice thing that you can do for people with a stream, because it bumps up their numbers. So if any of you looked for this stream in the creative section, you would find it, but the creative section itself is going to be ordered by... It is really hilarious that it did a... it did enumerable of character for that as the, as the first guess on what that type was. Sorry, you would find us in the list based on the number of viewers we have at any given time. So if we had like 10,000 viewers, we're going to be at the top of the creative list probably. But since we obviously don't have 10,000 viewers, because this is a developer stream and not a game, and not a game like you know, Overwatch, for example, where they'll have like, you know, 150,000 people watching as they do their pro matches, for example, for the Overwatch League. And we're also not some streamer that's been going for a long time. Okay, so command word. That is currently only being used right here in this test to match up with that. So, if we take a look at our TwitchChat client wrapper, we did a command received previously. So on command received, and they called it command text. And we looked for coins. Now what I wonder about, so I don't have this running. I'm going to run it again because I want to pass that coins command again. So I want to experiment a little bit with this. So you'll see the bot's running again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and first off I'm going to talk to my Streamlabs chat bot by saying points. So Streamlabs responded. Since we looked at it earlier, I've gained 18 points. And you guys can all do that command too if you like, and get the bots to respond. So that was from the Streamlabs bot. And then this one is from our bot. Now, the thing that's really interesting about this is that at least in Streamlabs, I'll drag this onto the screen so you guys can see it. So I'm running Streamlabs, so you can see this chat bot comes back with a console. It's actually pretty nice. I used to use it back when it was under the name AnkBot, and it got acquired by Streamlabs, and they've been developing it. But what I want to point out here, notice these two messages, one's in orange, one's in purple. So the bot can identify that this was its own message and this was from something else. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I wanted to show that to you guys. So it's something that we might put in ours someday. And at some point, if we want to build stuff for the Streamlabs chatbot, we can. Its extensibility is using Python, not using C#. So, and we here tend to like C#. We think it's a nice language. Is it the best language? Absolutely not. There's no such thing as a best language, but certain languages do certain things well. So it responded to coins. Here's the reason I wanted to test this again, because I want to see. So we know that saying coins works, but what if I said coins and then something else afterwards? Okay, so it still responds. So what that means is that command text on the TwitchLib library is just the command. So notice that coins1 didn't work because we looked for an exact match on the word coins. But what that also means is that coins with a capital C is not going to work because I didn't do something like to lower this. So this is just a general string comparison. I'm not too worried about it just now. So capital C coins and lowercase key coins are different things. And I can also tell you in Twitch, casing tends to matter, especially for emotes. So for example, if I do the lol emote, you'll get the picture. But if I type it in lowercase, you don't. So it had to be all caps for that. So I think most people are probably used to it being case sensitive on Twitch anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. They might be surprised if it worked and it wasn't case sensitive. Okay, so what that means is command text is what I need to set. So this is the IRC string, which I'm not sure what's going to be in that, but that's my guess. And I thought it was inside of chat message, right? Oh, figures I closed it. TwitchChat client. Okay. Coins. Command and then command text. Okay. So it's off of the command. So I am going to yank this out and make it its own variable. We're going to set command text, assuming it lets us, which it doesn't, of course. Was it a parameter? Message. Oh, okay. So I think the thing that's going to make this difficult is that chat command is not getting created the way we think it is. So I apologize for flashing you with bright white again, guys. That was my bad. I just wanted to jump over here because it's going to create this message. Ah, yeah, see? It's creating it from this, and I bet what happens when it creates these, I have a feeling that that what is going to happen is it's going to pass in this piece, and the object itself is going to create this based on the string it receives. So I'm thinking that TwitchLib is giving this thing a full string, and that's getting parsed out with the information for what the command text was and what was the other piece. What? Hang on. New chat command. There it is. Okay. So on command received, personally jump through without return. So we're saying if our response is successful, we're going to pass in We're going to create a message with a Twitch username, an IRC message, that, and that, and that. And then we're going to invoke the event. We're going to pass in a new event argument, passing in the command, and that's the chat message, and that's the IRC message. So notice that chat message itself was given the same IRC message that was put directly on the command itself. So our command gets us access to the full IRC message, which I think in this case is going to be the like the full string. So in the case where I said coins space 10, that's what it's going to be in there. And then this is the other one. So I'm betting if I jump back here and I go to the chat command itself, we're going to see it breaking those apart. Yep, splits. See? Splitting based on a space, so it's doing exactly what we thought it was. So arguments as a list. So it is pulling that apart, so it's breaking the argument list. So it's treating these commands almost like an executable would run. So if we were doing like our main method, for example, and received an Receivedargs list, this is what we would be getting. So that's kind of nice. So putting in the message, command text, it's splitting based on the string. I do find it hilarious that, so if you look here, the number of times that it is splitting based on this but not assigning back to it, it's like, dude, guys, you could have like split that once, not done it like 20 times. Have a feeling for some of these we could have gotten away with that. I mean, look at that. The number of times that we use this message. How many times do we split this? Sorry, guys. We may have to go and optimize this code at some point. Not because it needs to be optimized, but just this looks hilarious. Just, I mean, look at that. 4 splits. There's no way that's the most efficient way to do it. Anyway, but I do like their code. It's pretty well done. I do like TwitchLib. It's just always funny. Whenever you look at someone else's code, you can see the thing that it's like, oh man, wow, this is hilarious. I can't believe you did it that way. Whereas I'll look at any of my code and I'll be like, oh man, this is terrible. I can't believe I did it that way. Alright, so let's see. It does split this up into all these different pieces, exactly as we thought it would. And it's doing that off of the message on chat message, which is the full IRC string, which is hilarious then that it's not just using IRC string, because we happen to know that that's how it creates it. Whatever. Since it's doing it at this point anyway. Unless chat message also did something breaking it up, but I don't think it did. Either way, we'll take a quick look at that one, because that one should be somewhere. There it is. Did this do anything interesting in its constructor? Oh my! That's all constructor. That's all constructor. That's one. Wow. All right, guys. We're definitely gonna have to submit a pull request or two. Also, I love that it's doing the net standard check here. I have had to pre-processor some of those already too. Okay. So what that means is that's the IRC string, and this is also the IRC string. So we're going to go ahead and say that lurk was the full string in both cases. So the splitting is going to do nothing. And then we're expecting to get lurk down there. Okay, so the reason I made this just be test 1 for now is because I wasn't sure what I was going to be testing. So, yeah, exactly. Debugging that constructor would be insane. I don't look forward to it, but what I would like to do is send them a pull request at some point and just fix that up a little bit. Because we could easily just do some method extraction or something like that to simplify some of that. But even in the other constructor we were looking at, the number of string splits it was doing, I'm sure there's a simpler way we could do that. Anyway, okay, so test 1 and test 2. Now the reason I left the name that way is because what I wanted to do was pause for a second and just think, what is the distinction between these two methods? So I'm going to do two tests here, and I want to think what makes them different, because that helps with getting the name right. So the first one, I think what I would want to do for the second test is making it so that we can handle the case where our command had a parameter and we can identify just the command. We want to make sure that it gets us just the command. The stupid part is that it got that. So we just want to make sure that we can... No, yeah, we're not testing their piece. We're just testing ours. So we don't care about that. We want to make sure that it passed the command. Okay, so... See, that's why I wanted to think of what's the next test so I can get this one's message right. So going from this one to that one, translates commands. Should pass command, map command text to map command text. Yeah, good enough for now. I would say given a command, but we know it's given a command because it's like on the command object, so that seems redundant. Okay, so what that tells me is a lot of this stuff does not matter at all. So this piece, this is really just, I just want to get my test message, and I don't really care what it is. So let's go ahead and grab these. Whoops, not to that one. And for some reason, I screwed up my keyboard shortcuts. I installed like one too many thing. My resharper keyboard shortcut doesn't work, and I think it's my Visual Studio Power Tools that nuked it. I haven't gotten around to fixing it. So what is this? Do thing for now. That's what we're going to call this, and then I'm going to figure out what it does. Full IRC string. That's not exactly what I wanted. So we're going to pull that out. Check. Yeah, see, it did an output parameter. Although I do, actually, sorry, it did not do an output parameter. I lied to you. It did an output variable, which is a modern C# thing. So C# 6 and 7 are fairly recent. Most devs are not using all that many pieces of it. The main thing that I see people using it for out of those is string interpolation, which is when you put the little $sign before. And the other one is we have been using it for my brain won't come up with it. It's null conditionals. That's the word. For null conditionals. So a null conditional in C# is yeah, null propagation. Yeah, that's the one. The same thing. It's just whether you're talking about what the term is for the operator or what the result of using it is. So null conditional is when you do one of these, you say like only call my command, only call that method if the previous one was not null, and so you put a little question mark before it. And the result of using a null conditional is null propagation, which is what Magnus is talking about. Okay, so we now need to get our chat command back, which actually I'm going to put that back into there, because I just want to steal that, because I don't like typing. I don't know about you guys, I hate typing. I like just, you know, hit buttons and my tools do all the work for me. It's great. Okay, and actually I'm just going to return right here instead of even doing anything like that. So, okay, so this string does actually need to get passed in. So see, I sort of switched my parameters. It got a little bit confused just because I told it I wanted to have my string in there, so it thought I needed two results. So it did an output variable for me. So yes, exactly. There are all kinds of circumstances where you can save massive amounts of code by not having to do null checks and other things like that. You can remove all sorts of things with a lot of modern C#. my favorite one. So it's actually, so I do love null propagation, and it actually saves you all kinds of problems because it's way easier than, you know, doing your if null checks and such like that. I really do like the string interpolation because I used to not always agree with people on this one. So you could do string formats in the past, and you'd pass in your parameters kind of like this, and so you could do this. So that's if I wanted to, you know, put this in twice, although I'll do this just for clarity. So if I wanted to combine two strings together, I might do this. And I could do a string format, and that says, hey, put this one, and then, you know, that one, right? We've all done that before. So some people like that structure. Some people liked just doing string concatenation, where you would just say, like, you know, the full IRC string, and then plus the dash, and then plus something. And so those two lines, A and B, are going to end up with the same result. It's just a preference on which one you like better. And I was always on the fence on that. I could see both cases, and I would say, yeah, if you care a lot about the structure of the resulting string, where there was going to be a real format to it, like if I were doing a phone number, I'd be like, yeah, we're going to have parens around it and a dash between the second set. I would use a string format because it made a lot of sense that the structure of the resulting string is what mattered more than the values that went into it. But if the values that went into it were more important and you wanted to make it clearer, you'd do the string concatenation. But now we have an even easier way to do it, which is string interpolation. So if you haven't seen this, it works kind of like the combination of the two. It's quite nice. And some other languages have done it this way for a while as well. This is not, you know, unique to C# by any stretch. So the hilarity here is it's freaking out because it's like, why are you putting a string in there, you idiot? But that's just because I hadn't pulled out the variable for it, but I can yank out this variable and be like, yeah, there's something. Okay, so now it's not complaining. So these three strings all have the same value. I should say resulting value. We just got to them different ways. So this is actually my favorite of the new C# bits, just because it resolved the argument of which of these two to use. So I know it's simple, but things that get developers to stop arguing about pointless stuff is great. Speaking of which, you'll notice my spaces over here. I was really happy when we got to the point where spaces worked as well as tabs in terms of like the ability to get the structure. The only real case I know of for tabs is when someone I don't know how many people here watch C# Fritz's stream, but one thing that he does that you may have noticed if you do watch him, he does two spaces, which I will give you. If you use tabs instead of spaces in your code, then you can have a guy like Fritz that wants the more compact structure, and he can have his settings so that a tab is displayed as two spaces inside of Visual Studio, and we don't have to change the code. So he and I could view it differently, but have the same resulting text. So only case for tabs that is, you know, over spaces that is all that valid. Because otherwise it's really just preference on whether you like tabs or spaces. There's one benefit on that side. So it's funny that I talk about a benefit to the tabs people and I'm a space guy. Okay, so alright, let's make this thing work. So I called this do thing, but it's not. It is get test command. So we developers and our arguments, we could argue all day long. Okay, in theory that works. I actually don't want this second test right now. But what if not all your dev team agrees on spacing? It doesn't matter if everyone agrees which one they want, as long as everyone agrees to be consistent. I don't care whether your shop uses tabs or spaces. I don't care whether mine uses tabs or spaces. I don't have to agree with which one we do, but we're picking one and sticking with it. So whether we do it democratically and have a vote, or just whoever the lead is on the project says, hey, it's going to be tabs or spaces, I don't care as long as we pick one. Because the worst thing is when, like, this line is tabs and everything else is spaces, and you're like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. You've gotta be kidding me. Alright, so let's take a look. I'm assuming this failed because we didn't have this thing. Index out of bounds. Ooh, we broke somewhere on this. Yeah, merging does suck. It can get bad enough even without that. Chat message constructor. Yeah, see? It did not like something we passed in. So our test command, probably we gave it something silly. Index was out of bounds there. I wish I could just get a test object. I might be able to. I might have to fake this. Alright, guys. We are going to leave this as an exercise for later. I'm going to do this off stream because I am going to actually yank this whole thing out. Replace with a Miller structure that doesn't require making the object. Okay, so my problem is because they did that strange constructor setup instead of, say, doing like a factory or something like that and making it an object that was basically dumb. So I want my chat command object to be stupid and just be a set of parameters because it makes it way easier when someone else does it. But I'm basically going to just create that object and not even worry about it. So the question of what do I use mocking for? So mocking would be if I wanted to call a method or something like that, or I wanted to have a fake object, I could mock out the object and tell it, hey, when something calls this, respond with this. So for example, I could mock that object and just tell it, hey, when someone asks you for your command, respond with this command object. And that works pretty well. But that seems a little weird when all I want is just an anemic little object, because I literally just want the text, and so I want some way to be able to set that, and it won't give me one without a bit of complexity. So it's an object that's hard to build, so I'm not going to deal with it right now. I am just going to go and make my method, because I am not worried about a mapper. So my extension class is literally just map this thing to that thing, and yeah, you can test that, which I was going to, just test a couple of pieces of it and just make sure it did the basic mapping, but I really don't need to do all that much. So command word equals source dot command text. Done. Boo. There we go. I like that structure better because I do know that I'm going to have additional pieces. One other thing that I do that's a little weird, and I'm going to mention to you guys because I like it, you'll notice I left the trailing comma here. And the reason I do that is because when I duplicate a line now, I already have the comma at this line, whereas if I didn't have that comma and I duplicate the line, I need to go back and add one, which just seems silly to go back to that line. So I always leave the trailing comma. C# allows it. Just prove it to you, I'll build. One of the things that annoys me is that you do a lot of this kind of structure. Well, actually, I mean, it's complaining because this thing's running. But it built. It just didn't do the transfer of the files. In JavaScript, the JSON object, you can't actually leave the trailing comma like that, which is really irritating because it, could work the same way if you like. Okay. Anyway. Moving on. So that transfers, so now we should be able to get one of these. I am going to pull these extensions out into their own file, because I no longer want them in there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and call that. Yes, JavaScript does have a couple of restrictions on things. It's a little free in some other places, and really I would argue that it's not really restricting it, it has an error that it doesn't need to have. It's not like they intentionally restricted it here. Okay, so we are doing that and calling that event handler. Okay, so the wirebar event handler is done. So we wrote that code already, so that is happening here, which is not getting called, because I didn't call it. So actually I'm going to jump back to the interface again, and I'm going to go to where we connect, which is out here in bot main, but I don't really want to connect it there. I want to do it here. So chat client dot wire up event handler. So essentially, I need to give it the action. So if you looked at what it was doing, oh, whoops. Yeah. I didn't want to go to the interface, I wanted to go to the implementation. So essentially all I did was I take I'm going to pass a lambda to this, or a method. Basically, I'm going to pass an action to it, which could be a method, could be a lambda, whatever. In some way, I'm going to pass some kind of method here. This action is then going to get called by my other one. So it's really just a couple of wrappers around that. It's a complicated way of saying, hey, have this code do it. Heck, I could even do a private local function if I wanted to. And I do want to say local function, not local method. But that is a distinction that doesn't really matter. So this is wire up event handler. So this is the event handler for... but is it not hard to unsubscribe now since you use a lambda for subscription? It would be, except I could easily just make an unsubscribe that did the same thing. I'm going to put a method in there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The switch from that to the other one is so easy. It doesn't matter. Because yes, this could be a method, and I could pass it in, but I'm not worried about it. Okay, because I did mention earlier, I'm probably going to switch to a domain event structure anyway instead of using these, and so we'll actually have methods for pub sub that work a little differently. So I was passing this in, event handler, that. So I want to rename this, instead of wire up event handler, this is going to be the wire up command received event handler. So we're going to do command received event handler. So the reason I don't want to subscribe directly is that I want to be able to do this for all the various ones, so I need it wrapped around something. So if you've got an idea that's not what I mean, then let me know, because if there is a better way to do this, I would not mind doing it the better way. Always open to suggestions here. Okay. So this first is sender. And then this is args. And this is command received handler, maybe? Yeah, sure, handler. I know what that means. So, oh, actually, I think I know what you might mean, and that is a good idea if you mean what I think you mean. You mean, why don't I put this direct as this piece, like to just put it right there? Whoops, I mean, put in event handler, like this. So if that's what you mean, then the reason... Yeah, so the challenge is that if I put that in there, sender is an object, and I like the idea that I know it's a chat client, which first off, I could switch it to an object and just have the knowledge that it's a chat client and do the interface cast and just say, hey, either let's hope this doesn't break, or I could do a safe cast. You could add in event args the client. Yeah, so I could put the client inside the event args, and then just take the object and not worry about what type it is. And then additionally, what I could do is, so I'm already planning on doing pattern matching on it, which solves that. The other challenge is that I'm not using the same event args type, so I already have to do a translation of that. So even putting this in here, the types aren't going to match, because this is not the same event args as the other one's going to have. and there's no way to make those match between Twitch and any other chat client we wire up. So that's why we have the second class. But yes, you're right. If we toss chat client inside of the Eventargs, and then even if the sender is an iChat client, we would still have access to it elsewhere, so wouldn't have to worry about it. So you are correct. We could do that piece that way, but the problem that we run into is that we need to do this type conversion. So that's the piece that we can't do by just passing event handler as the type. So if you've got a way I can get around that, then I would be in favor. Yeah, exactly. It's the two types on the Eventargs. Yep. Yeah. As I said, if you've got a way to get me around that, I would love to see it, because that would be much nicer than what we're doing. But we have to wrap right now. The other thing, so I've actually been asking for this for years. I'm often at the MVP Summit, which is actually where a lot of the other streamers probably are. That's actually, I'm sure, part of why Fritz didn't stream today. He normally streams in the morning on Saturdays. I think his stream ends about an hour before mine starts. And I don't think he's at the MVP Summit yet, but I'm assuming he's doing stuff with family before he leaves for the MVP Summit next week. And I'm normally there, and normally, most years, I stop in the C# room, and I talk to the team that I guess builds C#, we'll say, and I do my annual complain to them about the fact that they haven't added the feature that I've wanted for years, which is, I like to call it like auto-implementing interfaces, but if we talk about what it is in other programming languages, C++, for example, has had a proposal for a couple of times for something called concepts. Now, I call it auto-implementing interfaces because of the fact that in C# we have this interface idea. Like, we know what an interface is, and that's what ours are. They're not called interfaces in all other languages. That's just what we call them. So the idea is that you might want to be able to have an interface that can apply to a class, even though the class never specified that it was of that interface. So that's the piece that I would like, because what that would let me get away with is, in some cases, you have two classes that have the same interface, and you're like, wait a minute, these both have, for example, like command text. Maybe the Twitch client and the Discord client both have command text. Well, I could treat them the same way if I could apply an interface to them. Now, I can't get an interface that's consistent to both of those, so instead what I have to do is I have to wrap each Twitch client and give it its own piece, or I have to extract it out. So there's extra work I have to do, where sometimes these just work. So if you've ever worked with a third-party library where they didn't have the interface, you wanted them to have, like, they have the class, and you're cool with the name, but they didn't map it to an interface, so you could just add one. There's some other nice things about it. So if you actually want to read about any of this, you can actually take a look at C++ concepts. Man, that should not be hard to say. This was set up. I don't think it ever got in. I haven't really been reading this wiki article that we're sitting on. So, yeah, Bjorn A. Strustrup from a bunch of years ago. Oh, looks like they're still doing stuff with it. Maybe it actually got in. Previously, a different form of concepts were concepts are specified. Oh, they're implemented in GCC 6. Hey, cool. During the C++ standards community, evolution worked the concept into the machine, but the motion was defeated. Oh, okay. So they're still not putting it in. Was merged into the 20. Began planning 20. Current draft is that. Okay. So it looks like concepts is still delayed. Yeah, see, here it is. Huh, interesting. Yeah, basically, I want to be able to apply an interface to something at runtime. which, if you're thinking about it, it's like, man, you're crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm crazy, but you can do it. So the interesting thing is, actually, it's not as hard as you'd think. So I was talking. So the developer that actually built the implementation that C++ is adding in, you might have noticed his name on there, is actually a good friend of mine. And I have discussions with him. So I've actually been arguing with him for the better part of a decade about how things are implemented in C# and C++. He's obviously in the C++ camp, and I'm in the C# camp. Hey, welcome. I'm guessing Miss Wu. Let me know if I pronounce anybody's name wrong ever. If so, I apologize. So, as I said, I've been arguing with him for the better part of a decade about, actually no, it's been more than a decade, about different things in C# and C++. He's a big fan of C++ templates, and I like generics. I like a lot of the things in C#. It's a very well-written language, but it's actually a lot easier than you'd think to implement. And obviously, talking with him, he knows more about C# than you would guess, being a C++ guy, because he has done a lot of stuff with it. But I would love to see it implemented, and I, should talk with the C# team more about it. They actually sounded interested the last time I brought it up. Either way, let's go ahead and work on the next piece of our handler. Now that we're done discussing language design. Okay. So I mentioned that we were going to be doing a small amount of pattern matching, and I'm actually going to do that with the sender because I can get away with it. Actually, I can't do it here, but I could do it if I put it somewhere else. So it is a fun discussion to talk about language. I'm a big fan of it. Actually, I don't want to do the pattern matching on that. So the cool trick with the sender is that because it has a send message, I can respond back on whichever one it was. So let's go ahead and put in my switch again, and I want to say args.commandword. Yeah, I know, I'm putting in a switch. Don't kill me, guys, please. It's temporary. Alright, we're just going to actually just chop the one out that we hacked in before. So we put that in just as a test to see if it worked previously. Now we know it works. We happen to know our sender is a chat client, so that's our local chat client there. So we're just going to say send a message back on the same one that we called it on. So now we have pulled out the idea that we no longer know about Twitch in that. So let's go ahead and nuke this. And this stuff's all committed from last time, so I'm not worried about losing it. Okay. So we no longer have our stuff hard-coded directly into our Twitch client, because I really want this just to be a wrapper. And, I mean, as I was mentioning, the problem that I have with a lot of this is whenever you're combining multiple third-party libraries that you don't have access to the code on, you run into the problem that you end up having to wrap it all the time in order to keep it abstract. So, definitely becomes a problem. Either way, let's go ahead and run this again. I don't have it running now, so it's safe to run it again. And crash, because it tried to connect the console one. How can you guys not have reminded me to implement this? That was terrible. I blame you. It's totally not me. Not like I'm the one writing the code or anything. How could I be at fault? Just kidding, guys. Alright, so we don't really have anything in the console right now, so I'm just gonna do nothing. Alright, so I'm going to put that there. The console one really is just so that we have a second thing. Actually, you know what? I am going to put something in it, though. I'm going to have it write out a message when we do this. Just so that we can see that it got called. Connecting... no op for connecting the... whoops. I can keyboard. Alright. So we no longer need that running. So all it's going to do is just spit out a message that it was called, but not actually do anything. So there we go. No op for connecting. All right, so our chat client's running. I should be able to come over here. Again, I'm going to call out the message that our Streamlabs chatbot responds to. So you should all see that in chat. I called points, and it passed that in. And then I'm going to do coins as well, and looks like that responded as well. Why do you prefer passing an action as a parameter instead of creating another event at Aicha that propagates the source event to new data types? Hang on. So you're wondering out here, why do I prefer? So I passed in an action, so that essentially let me from this point out here pass in this instead of creating an event. So you're saying why didn't I make this be a why didn't I say foo plus equals and then my command received event handler like this? I guess the short answer is it felt a little bit weird to have my event just connect another event as being what it does, and I guess then the challenge is that when I want to unsubscribe my event, I guess what I would do if I were setting it up this way is I would have to have in the constructor of my interface, I would have to have each one of those wire up the event that they wanted to use for this, and then like wire up their own method to be able to have when the one event triggers, trigger their own event, which I could do. And then what that would do is whenever I unsubscribed from my own event, the internal event, so the Twitch event calling my interface event, would still happen, but there would be no handler to catch it. And I would say really that just comes down to preference. I like this structure better, but I mean whoops, I can put that in there. That's not what I meant to do. Are you seriously telling me that it wants to make that an object? Is it stupid? So I actually originally had set it up doing this way, and then so I could do this, right? And that'll work basically the same way. Create an overload for, wait, what? Oh, yeah. Okay, so a couple of things. The first one is that I can't get away with this. What? Event keyword, what do you mean? I'm not sure what you... Oh, yeah. Oh, oh. You mean like that? Yeah, sorry. Yep, you are correct. Yeah, see, my tool didn't, it totally failed me. Thanks, ReSharper. So, either way, I'm pretty sure that I can't get away with that. Yeah, see? I can't get my interface if I do it this way, and that's really the only difference. Yes, all those tools are sometimes. They just can't quite figure out exactly what you want. So either one of these works. I like it that way, but I mean, I could go either way. So if you like it better with the event, then yeah, I can toss in the event. I'm not huge on it. So this would be. I'm gonna borrow this for a second. So probably that. So on command received. It's really just preference. I like calling a method and passing in like that. So because likely what I would do is I would probably have an unsubscribe. So if we call this a subscribe method, I would probably have an unsubscribe method, and it would do the same thing. Because here, if I unsubscribe from this, right, and I just do like a minus equals on this, the Twitch client is still going to be calling the method for this. So let's see. I think that by passing in an action, you make the two layers more linked, as in the received layer knows that the chat client layer has an event underneath it that it will subscribe your action. Yeah, that's true. It will know that I am doing some kind of an event subscription, but I think we're going to get it anyway. And I'll show you why. So let me get rid of that piece so we can actually look at it. So we can wire them both up, and I am seriously good. If we find out that this is a better way of implementing it, I am all for doing it the nicer way. I am not one to complain when my code can be improved. Actually, I'm going to leave that alone for now. It's going to continue to be a not implemented. So if we leave this like this, then I need to go into Twitch. Actually, I'm going to go into this one first. Just wire it up with a no-op because it's easier. So it gets that event handler, which we don't need to do anything with, so we're done with that one. Now let's go to... Oh, whoops, that's funny, I'm already here. Duh, brain work. Okay, so now I have this event handler on here, and so what's weird about this is... So first off, my Twitch client wrapper does sort of know that I've got an event because it's got this. So it knows that something could subscribe to it, which is sort of all we have here too. Except now I need to, in my probably constructor, since I don't think I have... I guess I could do it unconnected, but either way. Twitch client on chat command received. Yeah, I'd need to wire up... Oh, yes, I need to wire up the other one. Foo. Will do for now. So when this one happens, we call the other one. Right? And sender E. Then that would be .2 whatever. Right? So I could do it like this. And then call that if anything has wired up to it. So either one works pretty well. I mean, it just comes down to whether you like this structure better or whether you like this, and it doesn't really matter. So I could be sold on this one. So if you like this, we'll go with this. So I'm actually just going to call it chat command received then. So on chat command received, we do chat command received. Which is weird that we have on command received and on chat command received, but no problem, no problem. We'll go that way. So we're getting rid of this one. As I said, I'm good. Yeah, no, I mean they both work. We and keep in mind, Magnus, that I don't care how long you've been writing C#, you are still learning C#. John Skeet's still learning C#, for example. Let's see. So now out here, we no longer want to call that, we're just calling that. So each one is getting attached to that. So I'm good either way. I can be sold on both of these. The weird part now as I mentioned, is that we get this. So I want to have chat client equals sender as a chat client. Wait, sender as Alright, we're gonna have a bit of fun. Sender is chat client. Chat client. Sorry, I feel like being a jerk. Alright. No, it's cool. So you actually gave. So the funny thing was, I was mentioning before that that I wanted to use pattern matching, and you now have given me the chance to use pattern matching. So no complaints there. You let me throw pattern matching into this, so I call that a win. So I did something weird. I want to take a moment and make sure I point out the weird thing that I did to all of you, because it is a strange piece that we wrote here. Yeah, so the as Magnus just mentioned, the is what's pattern matching here. So essentially what I did is I have told C# attempt to cast this sender, which is an object, as a chat client. If it succeeds, so that means that if sender matched the pattern of chat client interface, so that's what this is. This is going to return a Boolean. But the difference between what was in C# back in like versions ago, say C# 5 and earlier, it would have just done this Boolean. So we could have gotten this piece in C# for quite a long time that has worked. So sender is chat client, and it just says whether or not it is implementing that type. Whereas now we have a little bit more advanced stuff, and they're actually adding more to pattern matching. So C# is getting better at detecting these patterns, and there's more you can do with it, which I want to get to later. However, what they added when they added the concept of pattern matching is that you can then take whatever it is that matched the pattern, and you can shove it into a new object, which lets me treat this as a declaration of a variable named chat client that is of type chat client interface, and then that is usable here. For example, though, if I were to have an else, chat client does not exist here. So notice I'm getting a red squiggly. I'm not allowed to access this here because it's not here, right? That's not an assigned variable because it knows it's not. So yeah, this code won't throw exceptions right here. Whoops, I need this to not be running. Or it won't, okay. Let me go ahead and rebuild and run this. So hopefully you guys are all enjoying this code. If you are, make sure you hit the follow button, as that really does help the channel out. And it also does some nice things for you, as you will be able to get notifications when we go live the next time, so that you will be able to see this. Okay, so remember, our coins, I think you meant points, is only wired up here now. In fact, just to prove it, I'm going to do a search of the solution, and you'll see that the only instances of the word coins being found are here and here. Now, I'm going to do our coins command in chat, and we'll see what it does. Maybe it worked. I don't know. Haven't tried it. Let's go ahead and just make sure it works. So we didn't get our message that I expected to get. Now, it didn't blow up, so that's important. Okay, so we have that in there. Let's go ahead and do coins again. Okay, so we called this. Let's go back to our bot main. I want to see if it got in here. Sender might not have been that because we passed in the other sender. What was sender? It's a Twitch client. Okay. Sender is Twitch client, chat client. What? It is though, isn't it? Oh, no, it's Twitch client. Ah, yeah, see, I didn't wire it up right. We didn't wire up our Twitch chat client right. So we passed in sender. We don't want to pass in sender. We want to pass in this. That's our mistake when we built that. So see, it did work. Our pattern matching, no, yeah, it wasn't that, Magnus. Our pattern matching did exactly what we told it. It worked perfectly. That was not the interface. So that's why it didn't work. So now when we try it, because we passed in TwitchLib's Twitch client, not our wrapper around TwitchLib's Twitch client, which is called the TwitchChat client. Hang on, I left it running and I just want to make sure it really did compile and give us the right thing. So there we go. So this should be running now. So the pattern we're matching is the interface here, Nevin. Okay, cool. So it is running, and it just replied. You guys can see in chat that we did get that. So what we're pattern matching here is we want to make sure that this sender, which is an object, that the pattern that it matches is a type. So we're essentially saying make sure that this matches that type and run this. So for example, just to demonstrate pattern matching, because I like it, I could pass in sender, and I could do a case for Twitch chat client, right? Case Twitch chat client. I think that's the one I want. Oh, I'm inside a core. I can't do it here. Ugh! No, I can't do it here. Core doesn't reference that stuff. So I'm inside a core. But if I were somewhere else, like say out here in program, where I do have access to those, so I have these in my chat client. I'm just going to give you guys a quick example, and then I'm going to delete this code. So going through the chat clients, I can do, assuming I can type chat client, just to show you what pattern matching looks like on a type. Twitch chat client, console, right line, chat client, chat client, Twitch client, whoops, I need to say Twitch chat client, don't I? Cannot fall out of switch. Oh. Break. It is correct. I'm not allowed to do that. Console chat client. Console chat client. So you'll notice that I can get away with this now. Twitch client ready. This is not really a thing. I'm going to delete this in a moment. But it at least will demonstrate the pattern matching for me. Notice it grayed them out because it didn't really need them. So I could name them, but it's kind of like, hey, you didn't use this, you idiot. And I was like, what did you even need this for? So you'll notice I could treat it now. This is a Twitch client. This object that I have here, it is not an iChat client. So anything that's on there, I can really get access to. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And you'll notice it spit out each one. So it spit out console client ready and Twitch client ready each once. Yeah, so generally speaking, you want to, when you're writing code, you want to use polymorphism, and you don't always need to know the underlying type. There are a couple of scenarios where this pattern matching trick is actually very useful, which I can get into some other time, but I'm not really going to deep dive into today. But one of the cases that I am a big fan of is when you are writing an action filter in ASP.NET. So if you say did like web API or something like that, you've probably run into the case where you did action filters for your various controller actions. And one of the things that you can do is you could say like a filter to make sure that a user has authorization to use a specific object. Maybe you've got a different maybe you want to restrict like which client accounts someone could access. You can see which ones they're attempting to reference in an action filter. And so in your action, you might be taking in a parameter, say one of them it takes in the ID of the object, maybe one of them it's passing in a collection of them, and through pattern matching you could say, well, let me know if I'm getting a GUID, or let me know if I'm getting a list of GUIDs, and handle those differently. So that's a scenario where you could do that, and you'd take in a single parameter. So there are cases like that where it's nice, and what you're going to do is you're going to create an object from that that's polymorphic and then goes into the rest of your library without having to use switch statements based on type. So generally speaking, the pattern matching is what allows you to get the polymorphic objects so that elsewhere you don't have to do it that way. Does that make sense? And yes, I'm glad you're familiar with, I figure most people in here, probably if you're hopping in this chat, probably know C# a little bit and ASP.NET a little bit as well. Anyway, so that trick works. We've managed to pull that out. It looks nice. We had some good discussions today. I am actually going to wrap. I usually like to keep these to about 2 hours, and I think that's about how long we've been going. If you are here and you liked any of this, make sure you hit the follow button. You can get notified when we go live the next time, and whether you want to actually get notifications or just be able to find it in your follow list, either one works. We will be back probably on Monday. That's our next scheduled stream. If you do want to see our scheduled stream, take a look down below if you're in the web client. You'll see the information for our streams for the week. We have 4 on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So we'll be continuing on this probably. Our other project that we've been working on is a soundboard for Twitch streamers. So if anybody's been on a Twitch stream, it's pretty common that someone will, hit some keyboard shortcut, or they've got a soundboard that they'll click buttons on to basically trigger fun sounds and things like that. I don't do them much in here because we do try to be a little bit professional, although we do still like to have fun. Hey, thanks for the follow, Nevin. Thank you, Nevin. Good to have you here. We do want to keep it fun, so shout out. I'm glad you guys jumped in with your suggestions and questions today. We will be continuing on with this and that, and I do intend to bring on some other people, and I want to do some pairing. So something we've done in Dev Chatter before is just do some katas together, katas or programming exercises, just because they're fun, a little bit of discussion, and you get to see what other people want to do with them. So I kind of like that. I've got a few people lined up that I want to pair program with, so I might bring them in for this, or I might just bring them in to work on some programming exercises together. There is a code repo, this is on GitHub. The organization is DevChatter, so you can just go to github.com/devchatter and you'll find it there. I do need to push this change up today, as I haven't committed because I'm still talking to you guys, and I'm going to do that right after the stream, because you guys don't care to see me do a git commit. That's kind of boring. Yeah, so a couple of other things I wanted to mention. Hey, thank you for the follow, Luck Raka. I apologize if I messed up that name. It's really hard to guess those, guess how those are spelled, guess how those are pronounced based on spelling. If I got it right, let me know. If I didn't, still let me know. And don't kill me. I tried. Yeah. So the code will be out there. I can talk to you a little bit about Git at some point. So I use GitHub for Windows as the piece that I use for diffing and committing. But most of the work that I do with Git is actually command line. I'm one of those nerds. I was actually a Mercurial guy back in the day. I actually liked its commands a little bit better than Gits, but hey, Git won, and so I of course jumped on Git right away also. It worked pretty much the same way, some different syntax. So most of my time I'm either in Git Bash or PowerShell, either one, because they both have Git installed on my computer, and I like to have a GUI for doing diffing and seeing what's in there because it's a little nicer, but obviously I do everything from the command line also. I actually have a Pluralsight course on GitHub for Windows. If you guys do want to check that out, it's a few years old, but it applies still pretty well, and I still get good feedback from viewers of it. So either way, I wanted to go through some thanks. So thank you everybody who followed today. Thanks everybody who was chatting and getting involved. I look forward to seeing if you guys want to send any pull requests or make any changes. You can go ahead and hop on GitHub, mention any issues, whatever you want to do with it. Just, you know, obviously be nice, know that we're just writing this on stream, and as I'm sure you guys know, when you write on stream, you're busy talking, so you're not thinking as much, which is why pair programming is so nice. You guys essentially are my pair. We're sort of mobbing this. I also wanted to, you almost got, Lukruka? Ah, I will get it. I will get it. And, one of those might have been close. I also kill everybody because I do, I don't know if I'm here, let me say hi on my other account. So I get everybody with this, so that is Brendonius, and I get Brendanius, Brendanius, I'm totally used to the hard to pronounce name that no one's gonna get right. Anyway, I also wanted to thank people that are hosting the channel right now, which, as far as I know, is C# Fritz and CodeBytes TV. So thank you guys for the hosts. I also wanted to thank Relax Daily, which is the background music that you guys can probably hear a little bit of. So relaxdaily.net has some music that you can just use as background music for free, which is nice to have here. And then also, you can actually check down below. There's information about the music that we've been listening to. If you were here for the opening, there's also some music that was custom made just for our channel, which is like our fun intro music that we've got. And yeah, I'm sure I forgot someone to thank, but thank you all for being here. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again on Monday. I hope to see you there. We start on Mondays. We go live at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So translate into whatever you want, or you can, if you take a look at the widget in the panel down below, if you're on the Twitch website, it should translate that into your local time, and it'll say what time zone it's using, so you can see when the next stream is. And when we're not live, so it says that we're live right now, but when we aren't, it should give you a countdown until when we are. So if you're not good at translating it to whatever time zone you're going to be in, you can see how many hours until we're live. So anyway, it was fun. Happy coding, everybody, and I look forward to next time.